So Murph, I just got back from my devastating hospital visit because I played Jack 2 and that shit was so good. It was so good.
What?
My brain
D-
exploded and it leaked out of the
d-
ears.
don't you introduce retcons into? Don't you do like season finale? The facility explodes. Cut to next season, episode 1, season 4, and be like, oh, but they were all fine. It was a scenario.
Let's not spoil Daydreamcast season 8, all right? Let's not spoil that, all right? All I'm going to say is it's time for a vacation. And it's
Yeah.
January, and I'm feeling tropical in January. I don't know about you.
I mean, I'm more of a mountains guy. Ultimately in my aesthetic.
Well, you chose the wrong episode for this one. Welcome, everybody. This is the Daydreamcast. I am Bro.
And I am Murph.
Okay. All right. And first, we're just gonna get started with the new season hot with me playing Gundam. Now, I missed out on the Vagrant Story episode. That was a good game. I did end up playing it. But that being said, Brendan of the episode played Gundam for the PS5, and I picked it up too. It's like the Overwatch shooter. I think it's like Gundam Legacy. I don't remember these names. I didn't study for this. Don't test me, Murph.
We're so professional in our season premiere.
It's Gundam Evolution. That's it.
Gundam
I remember.
Evolution. I prefer Gundam Creationism.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know about you, but I didn't come from a giant robot. I didn't evolve from that.
Well, how are there still, if we evolved from monkey Gundams, why are there still monkey Gundams?
I think monkey Gundams are just really, really cool. I think
are.
it's one of those cousin family tree things. Anyways, I don't actually know about Gundam. I don't watch a lot of anime, and Gundam is like one of my huge blind spots. But I do like giant robots. Hey man, I like Pacific Rim. I like Neon Genesis Evangelion. I've seen enough, man. And I gotta say, in terms of the actual gameplay, I like it a lot too, because I dropped Overwatch 2, and I've still dabbled in this. And if you wanted like just a general overview, I would recommend the season finale where Brendan talked about it. But it is like an Overwatch hero shooter arena thing with giant robots. I think the things that are particularly notable about it are the giant robots that feel specifically tailored to this kind of game, notably in terms of how the laser rifles and abilities go and the shields and all of that. And I also think he didn't really articulate what, because one of my things I hate about Overwatch is how objectives are in Overwatch. I think Overwatch completely fucks up how to do objectives, especially Overwatch 2. I don't know if you played it, but like there's like a tug of war one that's really bad. Anyways, I don't like that stuff. I like stuff like King of the Hill, Search and Destroy. There's like a lot of ones where you're trying to detonate a bomb or defuse a bomb. So there's a lot of like Counter-Strike influences. You know what I mean? So like it's not necessarily on the same scale as like a Valorant. Valorant is definitely like 80% Counter-Strike, 20% Overwatch. This one is like some weird like combination of things, but even then I just love how it did objectives. I love its style. It's great.
Okay, so as a mecha game, does it feel like you're playing in a big mech? Because when I was at PAX, there was this game I played called like Excalibur 2099 or something.
Ooh, that's a good name.
And it just didn't feel like I was in a big robot. It just felt like that was flavoring, and then these were very like normal-sized maps. Like, are you fighting in cities and things, or?
Yeah. There's cities, and the cities are like semi-Godzilla shaped. Like you're like eye level with buildings and stuff.
Okay, that'd be true to the source.
But it's not like full on cities. Like a lot of it is like deserts or like mechs, like things. Giant like stations or whatever. The real question you're asking is, do I feel like when you play it, do you feel like it? And if the answer lies somewhere in the middle, I think moving has issues in terms of running and scope and size when you're just like shooting enemies and you see your teammates at eye level the scale doesn't necessarily feel like giant robots, but
Mm-hmm.
what does feel like robots is the jetpack, that sort of movement, and then those additional abilities I talked about, where certain classes, there's like a class that feels like a gunner tank, where you're basically got giant machine guns and you're rolling around and you've got like auto aim, so that's super useful, and that shit works. And you've got like shield units with different laser rifles, so the combat aspects do make you feel like you're a walking tank, but
Okay.
it's not necessarily the walking tank part. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I'm still very interested in getting into this because, like I said in the Vagrant Story episode, I'm interested in filling an Overwatch shaped hole in my life. Does it feel like this game still has, like, or will have legs for the foreseeable future?
I don't necessarily know about it being necessarily like a lifestyle game that I will be playing a year from now. If you're asking if I'm going to be playing this game a year from now, I would probably have to watch Gundam to care.
Yeah, does it feel like it's like there's an active enough community, like every time you're hopping on?
I
It
don't have an issue getting into matches. The biggest issue is what Brendan cited in the last episode, which is when people leave, it sort of becomes a shit show. So as long
Mhm.
as nobody leaves, everything's fine. But, you know.
Okay, okay.
And
Well,
that's also like Counter Strike or like Rainbow Six Siege, where if someone leaves, the game just shits the bed. Specifically, Rainbow Six Siege, where you're just like, well, fuck.
I also played a game about people leaving and mechs and outer space. Of very different flavors. So I played Exo One. This game is probably gonna make my top 5 end of the year. Um,
Damn.
what this is, it's so hard to describe because the gameplay is very simple, but it's like the package experience. So what it
Okay.
is you play as this alien probe that is exploring different uninhabited planets. And you are this like little ball with like a dynamo energy source. You're indestructible, you roll around, and you have two functions. You can increase your gravity and you can toggle into a glide mode. So you're like rolling down hills, you increase your gravity, and then as you go off a slope, you let go of that button and you like launch into the air. And then you can like plummet back down again, or you can go into that glide and sort of like do some swooping and gain some distance. And you're always building towards this like monolith in the distance for each planet that will launch you to the next planet. And just the whole immersive experience, the sound design is so good. Like you hear like the pebbles being kicked by as you roll along. There's one episode that's like in a thunderstorm and the thunder's coming down. But if you build up enough speed and height, you can actually launch yourself above the cloud line of that thunderstorm, where it's just like blue skies and clear, and eventually you plummet back down. It's all seamless, and you're back in that storm. And that's so cool. Like this game does so many, it had just like so many different interesting renditions on this gameplay, and all of it just like had me genuinely jaw dropped at how like immersed and cool it was feeling.
I'm interested in multiple ways. I got multiple questions here because
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen this game and I'm looking at it now and it looks good. How much of it would you say is the audio visual experience and how much of it is within the game's design in terms of like mechanics and movement? I'm guessing it's mostly audio visual, right?
The audio visual is what really got me, because like for instance, there's one of the very early levels is you land on this water planet and there's like meteorites raining down that generate waves you can like skip off of.
Mm-hmm.
But you're just like in the middle of this ocean, beelining it for this monolith, and this is where it sort of teaches you how to move in water. But there is the idea that if you just hold down that like generate gravity button, you can just sink into the water as deep as the game will let you. But I didn't want to because the moment I got down to where the blue in the water was being replaced by inky darkness, I was like, this is too scary, this is too real, I need to get out, I need to surface, I need to surface.
Oh wow. So you were like immersed. Like that is a
Yeah.
case of like real immersion.
Yeah, and I don't
Dang.
know if there's like at a point the game is just like, oh, we lost connection with the probe, game over, or something like that, or if you can like eventually reach some sort of sea
The
floor.
bottom. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
Because there's not any other. You can't take damage. There's, as far as I came across, there's not really a fail state at any point, and that's like so part of it. And the movement is really good. Like just rolling around, building up like all this speed, launching off like hills. It's great. It's really fantastic.
So this sounds like, okay, I'm gonna be weird real quick. I love Mass Effect 1.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like going around on the planets in the like the rover type thing, but fun.
Yes, there is. I can definitely in the not the Landmaster, the Mako, um,
Yes.
going around in that. Imagine if like someone just took those maps and then like prettied them up a bit and then just dropped like Sonic in it, and you're playing as Sonic on those maps.
Okay. How long? Like, give me an idea of like how the game functions in terms of runtime.
In terms of runtime, the game actually encourages you to speed run it. All the achievements are like beat it in this time frame, beat it in this time frame.
Okay.
I beat it in 2 sittings. Let me check my playtime here. It was not a long game. I beat it in 2.3 hours.
Okay. All
And
right.
there is a story to it. It's very 2001 inspired, where it's sort of
Ooh.
about like you may be a ghost of an astronaut that like died on Jupiter, possessing this like probe, and you're searching for your missing comrades and things. And that's like told in this sort of sci-fi horror way, where like when people speak, it's played backwards and all garbled and stuff. But you can really kind of ignore that. It's really just part of the immersive experience.
Well, no matter what, we all know that I love alien probing, so I'm super about
You're
this.
all about probing Uranus.
That you said it, not me, man. I don't know how to
Speaking
transition from the
speaking of
Uranus joke.
anuses,
Oh my gosh.
tell me about Dat Crash.
Um, Crash 4, it's about time. I don't know if I've talked about this before because I played this kind of before. I played like 2 hours of this years ago when it came out. The Toys for Bob designed or developed Crash 4 is sort of like a reckoning or like a revival of the old school Crash platforming formulas that they sort of gave up with after a certain after like basically Wrath of Cortex. I like Twin Sanity, but like there it's a different game, and then anything after that is completely different in terms of design and tone, etc., etc. So here I really enjoyed. I think I think the thing I learned, I meditated on what Crash Bandicoot means. And I
Okay.
think Crash Bandicoot is possibly the most 3D platformer and fundamentally bad, but
The
fundamentally fun.
most.
Does this make sense?
Define what we mean by the most 3D platformer.
I think it's because of the dimension of going forward and going backwards.
Okay.
Specifically, it's that railness, but the railness isn't literal. Like it's not like a free run or anything. It is
Yeah.
literally just like that maneuverability in that space. So I
Hmm.
guess what I really mean is it is the most punishing game if you don't understand 3D jumping. And we will for sure, this is a thing to set up for later in the episode. There's a lot of ways developers tiptoe around the inaccuracy and inefficiency of 3D jumping. This game does a really good job with obviously like showing something below Crash, etc., etc. It just still has that. There's like a difficult edge to it that I still really enjoy, and I think it's just a certain kind of flavor that is just fundamentally good for me. Um,
Okay.
and the other thing is like the story is fun, it's cute, and I like the different art design. I think the art design goes above and beyond in the Saturday morning cartoon aspect.
So does it feel like Crash has not left and we're it's much like Shredder's Revenge? It's just like, "Oh, here's the missing Crash 4, the one we've been waiting on." Does it feel that way?
It doesn't feel like a game that came out in 2000. It definitely feels like a 2010s or 2020. I think it came out in 2020 title. It feels modern, but it does like it is fundamentally a game like Crash 1 through 3. It would feel like if someone made a Crash 4 in 2020, which they
Okay.
did. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, I can get that. I can definitely get that. How do you feel about like the additional characters? Because I think some of the Crash purists were upset that it's like, why are you playing as Dingo Dial of all characters?
Who cares? These people are losers. These people. Tana is a fine character. I actually like Tana in this. I think Tana is a very tacky bad character in her original appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's probably like Naughty Dog back in the day was just a one of
They
those
were horny.
developers.
You could say
Yeah,
it, they were
let's
horny.
just say. But that being said, I think Tana now has become her own thing. I think people may like roll their eyes at like the edgy haircut and the strong female, but to me it works. I think Coco works, and for Dingo Dial is just fun, man. I like playing as bad guys. I think playing as bad guys are fun, and I think Dingo Dial is interesting. He's more interesting than a Tiny. If you played as
Mm-hmm.
Tiny, it'd be like, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's tiny.
yeah, yeah. Who cares?
So you really feel like it's like Crash never said adios.
Murph, you played Adios. Tell me about it.
Adios is a very short game. It can be beaten in less than 90 minutes. It is a I don't really know what we call this genre. I guess I'll just call it a Firewatch alike, a emotional narrative first person game.
Oh, don't
Um
they go? I have used the term walking simulator before. Is it like that or is it different?
it's less about the walking and more about doing things, which is what the differentiation I make.
Okay,
Um
that's fair. Sure.
So the premise is it's set in the 90s. You are an elderly pig farmer who disposes of bodies for the mafia. And it's the morning, and your contact in the mob comes by with the drop off, and you tell him that you don't want to do this anymore. And the mafia guy is like, you don't know what you're talking about. Here, let me help you out with some chores around the farm. And it's just the two of them doing chores around the farm, having this conversation. And it becomes clear that these two guys have been doing this a long time, and they've built up like an odd sort of friendship, but also that you, the farmer, are not backing down, and both of you know what that means in terms of the mob's answer. And there's a point where you finish your chores, and the mafia guy goes off, and he says he'll be back tonight, and you just have to kill time until then. And you can feed your horse, you can go fishing, you can call your estranged son, but it's not like there's a multiple endings to this. Um, and I think the story and the voice acting especially are very good for this type of game. The issue is that the gameplay itself is very subpar.
Damn.
The visuals look half finished, and I don't that feels so mean to say, but it's true. Like when you look at the character models of like the mafia guy, the primary guy you interact with, it's like there's very little expression to go along with like how much the voice actor is giving his all. You know,
Yeah.
there's a point where you play horseshoes with him, and there's like not even like a game to it. It's literally like if you were trying to play horseshoes in the source engine, you're just picking things up and throwing them. you know.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures. I see what you mean by this. Like I had this problem with Nightmare of Decay where it's like the production value is cheap and it's clear that that wasn't like they weren't number one. It feels bad to tear them down like that because that's not
It's not the focus, but it's distracting. It's distracting, especially when there's like this like really emotional moment towards the end where like the mafia guy like hugs you, and like the character model's face is not conveying any emotion. and it takes you out of the experience. And genuinely, I think this would have served better done as like a visual novel or as like a point and click if you still want a few bits of gameplay in it. um
Yeah.
like if I was an eccentric multimillionaire, I would contact this company and be like, here's some money, make it look good. you know
Yeah. Damn.
um so if everything I'm saying sounds appealing, especially that story, it's a sad story. Like I teared up a bit. Um but I got it like $7 on the sale. I think it's worth that. You can pay more if like this is your type of like gameplay and story. Uh that's the long and short of it.
Damn. Speaking of the long and short of it,
Oh yeah.
I played Cyberpunk 2077.
Uh-huh.
In case this hasn't been made clear, I now have a PS5. I had to do some animal sacrifice. I had to like pray to some deep dark gods and devils for a PS5, but I got one. It happened.
Uh-huh. 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 You've got your Seto Kaiba looking machine.
Yes, the fucking my internet router just grew 3 sizes that day, if you know what I'm
Popped
saying.
collar, white clamshell.
um
So
and
tell me
because
tell
of
me
this,
about Keanu Simulator.
I can run Cyberpunk now. My Cyberpunk could not run on this machine. Um and I wanted something that looked good and performed okay. And the you know what got me into the like I'm gonna buy Cyberpunk was when everyone started complaining about Pokemon. When everyone started complaining about Pokemon, and then there are some people who are like, I don't know, I like it. I'm like, this is my window. This is the window in which I can point at everybody else and say they played a half-finished game. I can play a half-finished game too.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and and this game came out 2 years this game came out years ago. So there's been a lot of quality of life updates. I haven't. I'm gonna
Has
be
it really been
honest. I
years?
I don't know how many years, dog. Probably like 1, 2.
Oh my god. Time is
Yeah,
moving
it's been
so
a long.
fast.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. But what I mean is
This came out end of 2020. Okay, that's not as bad.
well, I forgot what
You're
I was
playing
saying.
a half-finished game,
Oh,
and
the game has had time to develop, and I was gonna be honest. I have seen more bugs in a fucking Bethesda game. Like Skyrim, Fallout's, all of them, even New Vegas, and I love Fallout New Vegas. That game ain't, and it's one of those things where it's like the bugs are like not a real problem. I can overlook them, especially now after so long after launch. The actual gameplay is not super innovative. It's an open world GTA esque first person with a little bit of RPG combat mixed in with the cyberpunk future. It's based on the cyberpunk tabletop game. I don't know if you've ever played that, but it's a good setting. That's a really good world.
yeah.
And the performances in it and the story is particularly interesting. I think the quests are something to praise, not necessarily in terms of freedom, but more so in terms of um, direction and just that sort of vibe. I think the game is not about freedom, but the game is about the small little like cool quests or stories you see along the way. It's like any other science fiction world where it's like a single story makes or breaks the world. And there's multiple that break and there's multiple that make.
Okay. Okay. So, how's Keanu?
Keanu plays. I don't know how much you know about Keanu's role in this.
He is Johnny Silverhand. Uh,
Yes.
is radical guitarist rock star, and if he wants to take your body and fuck it.
Yeah, you'll do it, man. So the story is that your character V is a mercenary with different backgrounds depending on player choice or whatever, who got into like a heist gone bad, loses their friend, but also gets a sort of data memory construct of Johnny Silverhand. Johnny Silverhand is a character from the tabletop RPG that existed, 50 years before 2077. He died 50 years before then. So now he's like a sort of walking ghost talking to you. So
Okay.
when you do a quest and you see, for instance, one of the famous quests in the game is a convict who escapes prison execution. He's about to be executed for the sake of a holovid where he's going to get crucified. And in that quest, there's so many ways it can go differently, but the entire time you're talking to Keanu, and Keanu says what he respects about the man or what he dislikes about corporations and big business, and you're having that back and forth. And I think what that enables you to do is get into the mindset of your character through talking to somebody else on the outside, and you sort of blend together. And the game is a lot about how much you're Johnny Silverhand and how much you affect him as well. And like that stuff all works. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Keanu's performance is a little wooden, as always. But the thing is, I have always loved Keanu Reeves, Murph. I am a huge, diehard Keanu Reeves fan. Not like super diehard. John Wick is like okay. But like the wooden acting is just like a very specific style to appreciate. And it works well here.
So, because there's so many, I never bought the Cyberpunk hype. I think I discussed this when I was on the Spore episode. In that, like, ever since Spore, I have never bought the hype of these like games that will change everything. And it's like, I think there's been some gamer revisionism at just how hyped up Cyberpunk was. Being like, oh, this is gonna be GTA 5 meets Fallout New Vegas meets... And it's like, no, I think this is gonna be like Ubisoft tier open world, guys. Like,
I think it's better than Ubisoft tier open world, but that's just me personally.
Okay, I haven't played it, admittedly.
I think the thing is like, number one, I never go for hype. I get excited for things, but like, I never have expectations like things are going to change the world. You know what I mean? So in that sense, what I was interested in was I wanted to play an open world Cyberpunk game. I like Cyberpunk games in general, but most of them are very tailored and very like cinematic or story driven. So a lot of adventure games. Et cetera, et cetera. Like we're talking Snatcher. There is the Blade Runner adventure game. There's like Valhalla, and you know what I mean? It's just all that stuff. And I wanted something where I could live and breathe into a character, and it all works. So for me, thumbs up.
So it feels like the world is realized, because I think that's what I was getting at, is that people thought this was going to be some like ultra immersive experience. And then when it came out, people were like, well, when you shoot your gun off in public, people just cower and don't try to do anything. It's like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you just randomly shooting your gun off with nothing?
I mean, I think there's some player issue or player expectation issue. I mean, if the question is can you how immersive is it? Can you walk into every building, every door? No, that is not. That is impossible. We can't do that. That is not within the game thing. But I will say, if you play the game, there is no debate how much effort and budget and crunch and developer suffering was put into this. I would not ask them to put in more effort, is I guess the way to say that.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
The game looks good. I think fundamentally, I think the real issue of the game in terms of bit by bit playing is the cars aren't fun. Handling the cars, apparently it got fixed later on, so I'm playing a better version of it, but it's still very lacking. It's very empty feeling in terms of driving. When you're walking on the sidewalk and exploring, there's a lot of good nooks and crannies and a lot of fun stuff like that. But no, and shooting is not anything to brag about either. They had to completely rework the stats. Like the stats I'm working with now in my game were completely different than on launch. They had to redo it after 2 months. because they didn't work. They weren't good.
It
They
just
were bad.
didn't work. Yeah. So it feels like it's now like a worthwhile purchase, that it's been revised. Like we are now in, like, Edge Runners has come out. We're now in our, like,
Yeah.
maybe Cyberpunk wasn't that bad era.
Yes. Well, $60 on launch, you were gonna have a bad time, especially if you bought it on a PS4. They botched the launch. I'm not gonna forgive publisher, greed. But
Mhm.
that being said, I bought it for $20 on a PS5. The game looked good, it felt good, no complaints.
Oh yeah. No, Cyberpunk's still on my, like, wish list. I think once I'm in the need for, like, some sort of open world experience, I'll probably go running to it.
Yeah.
Maybe once that expansion's out, or whatever that thing teased at the Game Awards is.
But Murph, we're talking about like a highly anticipated game from an acclaimed developer, right?
Yeah,
And you played Deathloop,
I
a game
did.
previously talked about before on the cast by Vaughn in the Link to the Past episode. I'm getting better about these plugs, Murph.
Uh-huh.
But tell me how you feel about Deathloop.
Okay. So I finally understand how Deathloop plays. And it's so different than I think, like, even like Vaughn was trying to communicate, because it is a little hard to describe. It's effectively just like a roguelite with, like, a focused narrative element. I'm good. This is gonna be so. Okay, so what it is, you play as this guy named Colt. You are reliving the same day over and over, and you
Okay.
figure out that you can stop this loop by killing these 8 visionaries, but you can't do it all in one loop. So you've got to figure out ways to kill them off, like at the same time, like get them in the same location. There are 4 locations you can go to on the island, and each time you change locations, time advances. And there's like morning, noon, afternoon, night. And then once night happens, time resets. You're back at square one. Like, doors you unlocked, puzzles you solved, people you killed, they're all back to, like, square one. But very early on, you unlock a multi-life system where you can die twice and the loop doesn't reset. And then you also unlock this way to permanently attach gear to yourself and keep it between loops. And you get this, like, resource called residuum by interacting with certain, like, glowing objects out in the field, or by killing visionaries multiple times. And
So
that's,
so basically you're telling me that there is an element of permanent progression.
yes, and you're basically building up this arsenal. Like, one way to think of it is, early on, like in the tutorial loop, it takes a while to actually get to square one of gameplay in this. I think it took me like 3 hours. Um, but in that tutorial loop, I found this puzzle where there was this sweet looking weapon hidden behind this door that needed 4 batteries to open. So I went out in the field, I collected 4 batteries, brought it back to the door, went in. The weapon is like these cool shotgun pistols that can merge together to form, like, an automatic rifle. The issue is this is before I unlocked the residuum thing, so I couldn't keep that between loops. So I would need to go back and do that puzzle again to get the weapon, and then I would need to see however much residuum I needed to keep it on me. So that loop could have been entirely dedicated just to getting and keeping those guns.
That doesn't seem funny at certain points. What's the fun part and what's the not fun part?
So I think the fun part is, what they really wanted this to feel like is like a big playground. And the areas are very visually interesting. There's like, and they change over time as, like, the day progresses. So one of the areas, one of the visionaries is a game designer, and he sets up basically like live action role playing Among Us in one of the areas, where it's like this, like, big laser tag arena that's set up with, like, these Mars visuals, and you got to go in there and figure out which one is him and kill him. Um, and that's really cool. The issue is when it comes to hunting down the visionaries, it becomes rapidly clear that there's like one way to do it. You know, it's not like Hitman where it's like
Mm,
you can sort of come up with all these unique ways of doing it. In fact, like what earlier one of the visionaries like sets off this fireworks show each night, and you can sabotage his fireworks so they blow up in his face. And I did that, and I immediately got like a cutscene of the main character Colt being like, "Aha, this is the way to kill him for sure." And then like my journal ticked off like, "You figured out the way to kill off this guy." And it's like, "Oh, okay." you know, that just sort of
dang.
took the wind out of my sails when the game just de facto says, you found the solution for this character, go find the solution for the other ones. And that's basically what
Damn.
you're gunning for, is you're trying to gain intel on where characters are going to be at certain times, setting them up for like to meet up in locations that you can kill them off and eventually do like the perfect loop.
How much of this game did you play?
I've played a good 12 hours. Um, I've
How far are you?
I haven't gotten any legendary weapons, which I guess is the kind of measure. I haven't even gotten all the powers because I haven't killed all the visionaries. The visionaries are how you get powers. You kill them and then take their magic slab, and then that also costs
Mm,
residuum to bind to you, so you keep that power, and you can hunt them multiple times to get upgrades to that power.
I see.
And just
But if
it
there's only
just
one solution, why would you play them multiple times, especially if it's just a puzzle and not like an engaging combat thing?
yeah, and the combat just isn't that engaging to me because the AI isn't that smart. Kind of intentionally, there is an in-game reason that all the people on this island, they aren't combat people. They're like grad students that signed up for like the ultimate science experience slash never-ending party. Um,
Mm,
so you're not like the shootouts aren't that great. The gun selection is surprisingly limited. The only like rifle in the game is a single shot like rifle. Like you fire it, reload it, fire it, and only like a super special one has a scope on it. So you're not doing any long range encounters, which threw me off. It's a lot of like shotguns and close quarters.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. I was kind of really into it, and then it just took the wind out of my sails, and I don't feel like going back at it and completing it, because it's one of those circumstances where in those 12 hours, I feel like I have seen everything the game has to offer. Like I'm not going to see any like interesting boss fights or anything, because by design the game doesn't allow for that. The visionaries are just normal enemy types. They just have a bit more health or like a certain trick they can do, and
Yeah.
I it's just not that worthwhile as like a time loop game, as like a stealth game. All it really has is like that aesthetic, that sort of analog tech 1970s sort of funky aesthetic. And that's kind of disappointing to me, and it made me realize that I'm not really sure I've ever been like super gung ho about any of Arcane's games. Like I played Dishonored and I liked it at the time, but I've never felt the urge to like go back to it, you know?
I can't speak like a lot about Arcane's thing. I mean, a lot of people love it in terms of level design and ability. I will say Dishonored. It sounds like Dishonored has more gameplay options than Deathloop. Then like
Yeah. I
that
would
seems very
say
clear.
I would say Dishonored definitely has more like it has more of that playground feel. Like you can set up some real wacky shit in Dishonored that you
Yeah.
can't hear. And that's what's disappointing. And like the multiplayer aspect where you can get invaded by other players. Um, every one of those encounters I had was either I just like roll up on them when they don't notice I'm there and just shoot them a ton of times with a shotgun, or they have all this legendary gear because they've just been playing the game and like
Yeah.
one shot me from across the map, or there's this really annoying power you can get where you can just pick someone up and throw them. And I'm in one of my runs, I came across this person that just had that, and they picked me up and threw me off the map 3 times. That's the long and short of it. I've already uninstalled it. I don't feel myself going back. Um, the game looked so cool at its first like initial release, and then they just had such difficulty explaining the gameplay loop, no pun intended.
Yeah,
And I think that's because the gameplay loop in of itself is just kind of underwhelming.
that's fair. No, I will one day play it and have my own take. Might like it more than you, might not. May not care about it at all. I tried playing one of the canceled ones was Returnal. I didn't hate Returnal. I couldn't put too many hours into it. I was just like I kind of understood the gameplay loop, and then I was like, oh, I'm kind of
Yeah.
bouncing off.
Yeah, and much like any sort of roguelite game, it's like whether or not there's enough of that incentive to get the player to go through those repetitious gameplay when,
Hmm.
after so much time you feel like you've seen everything and you're just getting hit by like a certain skill block.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Do you think it is time for the variety minute?
We can get some variety in here. We can get varietical.
This week's Variety Minute is GameCube era Mario games. Now, Murph, you've told me off air that GameCube is your favorite era of Mario.
Uh-huh.
Elaborate.
It's kind of something in the design of this era of Mario just really tickles my fancy, and I think it's because this era of Mario just kind much like the game of the week. It just kind of feels like the characters are on vacation. Like a lot of these
Okay.
titles are so removed from like the established Mushroom Kingdom stuff, and it feels like a Mario theme park. It's like, oh, here's the Mario Sunshine Resort, and here's the Luigi Mansion like horror theme of like the theme park, and here's
Remember when they made a Dance
baseball.
Dance Revolution game?
Yeah. Um, it really like here's an incredibly labored Murph comparison. What it really reminds me of is like mid 2000s breakfast cereal commercials.
I
And
see that.
do you remember when like breakfast cereal commercials would have like story arcs that lasted years?
Yes.
Like that's what
Yes.
it reminds me of. It's that like Mario and the gang were like, we're gonna go outside the Mushroom Kingdom, and then it's just like all these games are like based on that single road trip.
Gotcha. There's an arc there. There's a I think we'll talk about when we get to Sunshine itself. But there is a very specific identity when it comes to the GameCube and Mario on the GameCube especially. But even then, when you look at Metroid Prime or Zelda Wind Waker, there were identities to those
Yeah,
games. Those games strive to be something beyond a generic version of the title.
it
You
felt
know
like
what
a
I mean?
lot of like Nintendo was trying to like reinvent itself with certain
Yeah.
titles. Uh,
Yeah, especially you could see that a lot with like Star Fox Adventures, for instance, where it's like
yeah.
we don't know what to do with Star Fox anymore, so we're gonna slap on the rare Nintendo 64 adventure game they made, put Star Fox on it. Who cares? Let's just do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyways, but back to Mario. What ones are you thinking of when you talk like this? Are you talking specifically about like the sports entries and
I'm
Mario
thinking
Sunshine
like
and Luigi's Mansion?
primarily Sunshine Luigi's Mansion because that
Okay.
dichotomy always like is always so amusing to me that like Mario's often like the sun fun land and then Luigi's in this dark creepy thunderstorm surrounded hotel, not hotel, that's the third one, mansion, and then they both get like little gadgets that the game is like built around,
Yeah,
and it just
there's continuity to talk about arcs. There is continuity between Luigi's Mansion and Mario Sunshine too.
yeah,
So
with Professor E. Gadd. And it's like, I don't
yeah,
know, at the time of playing these games, would you have expected, like, oh, the next Mario game is going to include FLUDD? This is what Mario is now. Or would it really truly feel like this is a one off? you know.
All right, I have an answer to this, and I don't know necessarily how you feel about it, but I think that that was a tone of how Nintendo approached games, and sometimes still approaches games, depending
Mhm.
on the IP. But back in the day, yeah, I could see them making a one-off. Like there's like Yoshi's Cookie for the Super Nintendo, or like Wario's Woods. There's just random spin-offs where they felt like they could do whatever they could with the characters, because like Mario characters are meant to be placeholders for whatever game design functions Nintendo has made. So
Yeah.
in this sense, FLUDD makes sense. And I think when we talk about what's special about Mario Sunshine is I think this is probably the last time, and the GameCube era generally, it's probably the last time that exists for Mario.
Yeah, it's the last time everything wasn't so standardized feeling. Like
Yes.
I think to the Wii like Mario Galaxy era of Mario games, and it's just so like it's just so fuzzy to me. It's like, yeah, you have the aesthetic of like some things are set in space now, like the very visual, like they have established what space looks like in Mario.
Yeah.
But like nothing else seems to stick other than Rosalina, who is a
Yeah.
good addition to the cast, but it's like it just doesn't feel the same. Like even like GameCube variations of characters like that were already established seem to like really come into their own here. Like this is where I feel like Waluigi and Daisy really became like more prominent as cast members of the side games, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, like, oh yeah, because like Waluigi showed up in Mario Tennis for Wario's doubles partner, and it was a very nothing thing here. But I'm pretty sure it was Mario. I'm pretty sure it was Mario Tennis
Uh
for, or maybe it was the baseball one. Is it the baseball one where there's extensive Wario and Waluigi
the
cutscenes where
Mario
they are
Power
like,
Tennis like intro that
yeah,
goes on for like 5 minutes. That's great.
yes,
And I just
yes,
don't
where there's
see
active Waluigi characterization.
Yeah, and I just
Yes,
don't see Nintendo doing something like that
no.
now because
And I would also say like Double Dash. Double
mm,
Dash is a fantastic example of what you're talking about. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, Double Dash is also like akin like the most theme park ride feeling Mario Kart to me. Like I swear this is like a VR game at like Disney Quest I did with my sister years ago, where like one of you is on the back of a cart shooting at people and the other one's driving. And then, like, I'm just gonna chuck this in here too, because the GBA is also at this time.
I was gonna ask because like here's my thing. I would disagree with the GameCube era if it was only GameCube. If we
Hmm.
are including Game Boy Advance, I would consider this era to be the best Mario.
Because you get all those remakes, you get Superstar Saga, and like
Yep.
again, it's just like back when things weren't so standardized. You got like unique characters based off like Mario enemies. I can't remember when
Hmm.
this was leaked. I think it was like around the last Paper Mario, the Origami King on Switch. But there was this like Nintendo internal memo that was leaked some time ago about
Yes, I
how
remember that. Oh
no
god.
longer doing like unique characters off of like
That's yeah.
you can have Goomba be playable in Mario Party, and you can build a
But not
personality for
Mr.
Goomba.
Not Goombario. You can't
You
have
can't, yeah,
Goombario
you
anymore.
can't have a unique Goomba or a unique Koopa anymore, and that's just
That's
so
yeah.
weirdly limiting to me.
And I will say, because we should say it out loud now that we've tiptoed around it, Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door is like a beloved Mario RPG. And it's probably like for biggest claim to fame, in my opinion, is the party members. The party
Yeah,
members having such identifiable personalities. You know what I mean? Like it's just I can't conceive of it, and I don't necessarily hate new era Paper Mario, but it just talks about the difference in approach for Nintendo now.
yeah, it just doesn't hit the same, you know.
Yeah,
Um, wow, there were 4 Mario parties released on the GameCube. That's crazy to
I'm not
me.
gonna lie, the Mario parties on the GameCube suck.
Is that right? I guess I always kind of got that vibe, but I
Yeah,
think it just still shows like how like ham they were going with the spin-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to Waluigi, Dance Dance Revolution Mario mix, Waluigi's the main villain of that game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't necessarily want to play it. It doesn't look that good, but I mean, hey,
No, but
they
it's
did it.
like
It
it's just
exists.
like notable, you know. I
I
don't.
I would rather a Mario Dance Dance Revolution game exist than not exist. So
Yeah,
here
and
we are.
like Camelot was on fire this era. Like we got this is where like Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario Sluggers really came into their own. Um,
Pavlos was a huge fan of Mario sports games. So like, and like nowadays, he like, you could go back to the old episodes. He'd lament like new Mario Tennis or new Mario Golf. He'd be like, these features are, there's a lot of features cut, and there's a lot of features they add on, after the fact. Whereas these like feel like fully realized titles, and they feel like the best versions of these games.
yeah, it just again, it's like that personality is missing. Like I looked up a comparison between like Mario Golf when you like hit the ball in the hole at like various intervals, like what the character does. And like the
Yeah.
biggest downgrade is like in the new Mario Golf when Wario hits a bogey, he like slaps his knees and looks sad. In the GameCube one, Toadstool Tour, a fucking boulder drops on him.
Yeah. I guess the counter example would be that Mario Strikers, and I like Mario Strikers a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That I would love that on the Wii.
Yeah,
That feels like
I
a
think the
very
Wii
specific kind
version.
of Mario. Yes.
Yeah, because
Um,
that is again just such a wildly different aesthetic.
uh-huh. And to talk, how do you feel about Super Smash Bros. Melee, Murph?
I think it's nostalgic to me, but I think I played like Melee after Brawl had already come out, you know.
Damn.
And the only times I didn't was like at friends' houses or like at a McDonald's GameCube kiosk.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't particularly like the aesthetic of Melee, and I don't like how heavy everybody feels. For a platform fighter, it's bizarre how heavy they feel. And how fast it is in that way. I think it's good competitively speaking, like in terms of a fighting game, that's what you want instead of the aerial aspects of, later titles. But like I like Super Smash Bros. After GameCube personally. Brawl is really
mhm.
good in my opinion, and so is Smash Ultimate.
Yeah, and I just don't. I mean, Melee is where like Bowser and Peach were added to the cast, as playable characters and really defined what they are in that game, in that
Yeah.
franchise. But yeah, I don't know. It's like the Mario aspect of Smash feels more subdued as like it's hard to articulate. I'm more of a Brawl's my favorite. I'll just come out and say that. And then like Smash Ultimate is like mathematically like
The
the best
best.
one. Yeah.
Like if you could be quote unquote with 10 quotes objective, Smash Ultimate is the best. Yeah, I
Brawl's
think
my
that's
favorite.
fair.
If you dropped me on a desert island and said pick a Smash, I'd pick Ultimate.
There you go. Any other GameCube era Mario games? There's got to be more than that,
No, it's
right?
pretty much no, because you have Luigi's Mansion, which came out before Sunshine, then Sunshine, and then it's all like the spin-off games and Thousand Year
Do
Door.
Do you
What?
want to talk about Luigi's Mansion, or do you want to?
When I mentioned earlier about like McDonald's kiosks, that sort of unlocked something for me. That this was an
Yeah.
era of Mario, because I didn't get a GameCube until like the Wii was already out.
Oh,
Like
you
I
see, I'm very different. Where I got the GameCube like day one.
Yeah. No, I was a PS2 household. So I kind of came to a lot of these games like after the fact and like discovered them for myself. But the exception to that is like I would always play them in like the Best Buy like game demo area or at like a McDonald's or something. And that seems to me like so integral to like the flavor as well because again it goes back to that like that like theme park like vacation feel to the whole experience.
So you're really leaning on like the temporary, the transient, the liminal,
Yeah.
the sort of
This
like the
GameCube
passing
era
state of
Mario
mind.
GameCube era Mario is liminal. I'm glad we agree on this.
Oh my god! All right, I think it's time to move on to the game of the week, right?
Yeah, let's go vacation.
This week's game of the week is Super Mario Sunshine, a game released in 2002 for the Nintendo GameCube. The first directing role for Yoshiaki Koizumi, and the first Nintendo first-party game during Iwata's reign as president. Um, Interesting from Wikipedia, Yamauchi's last request as president before resigning was to get a Mario game on the GameCube. And that was kind of a complicated thing. There was like Mario 128 tech demos, which I think eventually flooded into Pikmin. But
Yep.
anyways, after a long series of adventures, Mario and Peach and Toadsworth and other toads of the Mushroom Kingdom decide to kick up their feet and relax and take a vacation to Isle Delphino, a resort island shaped like a dolphin. It turns out someone has been illegally vandalizing the entire island with graffiti, tainting the sacred shine sprites, the stars of this game. And that culprit is Mario. Oh my gosh. So they have now caught him red-handed, and they have now charged him with community service. He must clean the entire island and restore the shine sprites, yada yada yada, with his handy dandy FLUDD device, and maybe, just maybe, clear his name. The gameplay is fundamentally similar to Mario 64, but features the FLUDD device for many different gameplay instances. It squirts water. We'll talk about how FLUDD functions in the discussion. So, Murph, what did you think of Mario Sunshine?
Mario Sunshine is my favorite 3D Mario, and I can't
Okay.
really defend that point, because I don't think it is a. I think it is a good game, not a great game. You know?
Yeah.
I think it has a lot of glaring flaws with certain parts of its, with certain objectives that have become, infamous in the gamer space.
There's
But,
spikes in difficulty, and we'll
yeah,
talk about difficulty later.
but
But
it is the
continue.
only 3D Mario I have 100% completed.
Okay. All right. I disagree, but I don't completely disagree. My take on Mario Sunshine, and I said one part to you, and I think later on, I developed another take. There's two things that are really special in capital letters about Mario Sunshine for me. Number one is that art design. The art design and the tone of the game being completely tropical. I think perhaps you could argue that there's not a lot of variety because of that. There's no snow level, for instance. But I think instead, because of that, there's a more guided, direct approach for an aesthetic, and it's so appreciated. And it's, as we said in the Variety Minute, there's an art design to it. Like, Goombas in this game look completely different than to any other game, and so do Boos, and so do Koopas, and it's just one of those things that they'll never do again, and it's just a breath of fresh air. This game feels like a vacation at
Yeah.
points. Especially with like the graffiti art or the goofy side missions and all that. The other thing I was going to highlight immediately, so I don't forget, is the location and setting specifically. Now, it could have just been a tropical Mario game themed, but what I think makes it special is the setting is the most defined and grounded of any Mario game, period. You can see locations from other parts of the map, so there's a specific geography to it, and even within the levels themselves, there is a natural geography that feels like, for instance, my favorite level of the game, like in terms of area, is Rico Harbor. Rico Harbor has a lot of girders and all that stuff. It feels like a traditional Mario game, but it is in like a living, breathing environment. And that doesn't even necessarily feel like the case in Mario Odyssey. So in this, I think Mario Sunshine is special. We'll talk about the problems when we get to it.
It just feels like it's weird to say that a Mario game is immersive, but like, I don't know, every time I boot this game up, I just feel like I am there, I am in Isle Delphino, I am soaking up the suns. It's just like, it's so hard for me to play this game and be mad at it. I'm just always have like a smile on my face, the music's so peppy and laid back. Like,
the music is like a huge factor for this immersion, in my opinion, where there's, I don't necessarily know if everything's a banger, but there's not one dud. You know what I mean?
No, I think the only one that's like a little too like relaxed for its own good is like that, I don't even know what the track name is, but it's reused a lot. The track that plays when you're on the Sandbird.
Yes.
Where it's like the sort of like steel drum thing. That one I've always felt like they kind of used it in the wrong levels.
Yeah. But anyways, like, sound design is super important, and it feels good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just like, you know, it's one of those games, like going back to Jack and Dexter from last episode. Well, not it's episode before. You know what I'm talking about.
Last season.
Last season. It's just one of those games where I'll like boot it up and just kind of run around and hop off things, and I'll spray water and do a spin jump. And I'm like, that was good gameplay. I'm ready to put this down now. Even though I didn't like...
It's a toy!
I didn't do any like objectives or anything. Like, it's just fun to hop around and spray water. And you know what? Like, the water still looks good. You know?
Yeah.
It's still... I'm a connoisseur of video game water, and I think Mario games always get water right.
I think that's completely fair. I don't necessarily think they get swimming right, but there's not a lot of swimming in this game. There are some swimming segments that suck, but there's not a lot. For a game that is tropical, it is not a lot of swimming. And yeah, there's mostly surfing, which is good. Like surfing on the bloopers. I love the bloopers.
Yeah, or once you get like the turbo nozzle and you're running on water.
Yeah,
like,
I don't necessarily think the nozzles... we should talk about the missions when we get to them, but like the nozzles themselves, like flying on the thing, like woo, is so good.
Yeah, the turbo jump. It's like it all just boils down for me. It all just boils down to I always have a good time playing this. Like even on some of the more like infamously like hard or bullshit levels, I just can't remember a time I was ever like mad. Like the Chuckster level. I was always just, when I fail that, I'm like, whoops, I gotta do it again. You know?
I'm not gonna lie. That was gonna be my biggest complaint in terms of things is specific missions, but more so, it's like when they chuck you. Dude, when the Piantas like throw you, there is no determining their trajectory. And then it's like, this is the level dedicated to knowing their trajectory. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
I think it's not so much like that, the Sandbird level, the Lily Pad level. Like, all these ones are infamously hard, and I think they would be, like, so much, like, less infamous if you didn't have to, in a lot of circumstances, do a lot of, like, platforming just to get to that sequence. You know?
Yes, there's a lot of side ones. I'm pretty sure it's the lily pad one, or maybe it's the pachinko one, where you have to get a Yoshi, get on the boat. This is in Delphino Plaza. Get on a boat and then ride it. That boat slowly rides to the other side of the island to eat a fruit in a pipe and then go down the pipe, and then you've got a bonus level. And if you lose that bonus level, you have to do that entire part again. You don't just restart the level.
Yeah, that's sort of like there's not a lot of good quality of life within the objectives themselves, which I think is a huge issue. Like Pianta Park has, sorry, Pina Park has a another Yoshi one where you have to like get a Yoshi egg, then get the fruit it needs, then bring it to the carousel, and that will take you into a floodless level. And if you fail that, you are kicked all the way back to
Yeah.
Delphino Plaza. You're not even kicked back to Pina Park.
Okay. Well, I'll say one more thing, and then we should talk about FLUDD before we talk about anything else. Then, but I'll say that I think generally, in terms of setting, what's nice about it is other than Pianta Village, that final area before the volcano,
Mm-hmm.
there isn't really hard fail states in the general area. There aren't huge bottomless pits.
Yeah.
There aren't huge insta death things. Most of the time, if you fuck up a fall, and obviously FLUDD is there to make sure you don't fuck up most of the time. If you fuck up a fall, it just sets you back time to climb. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that never feels bad. It just feels
Yeah,
like, okay,
which I
let's
can't
just do it
say,
again.
like, Mario 64 DS is the 3D Mario I have probably spent the most time in, but
Hmm.
something about the Mario 64 levels have never really been, like, aesthetically pleasing to me. Like, even
Okay.
on, like, the slightly more up-res DS one, it's just, like, I don't know, it's a lot of, like, ugly-looking polygonal spaces to me. And then you like go to sunshine and it's literally like a beam of sunshine. These environments look so nice and they're just fun to hop around in, and they always feel
Yeah.
like lived in spaces. And part of what helps that is the FLUDD mechanics.
All right. So let's talk FLUDD. How do you feel about FLUDD?
Mario. FLUDD is, it's always great when game designers give you something that they know breaks the fundamental, like, focus of the game.
Yeah.
Because I've
Because
seen a lot of
like
people that get mad that FLUDD has, like, a hover mode. And it's like, how can a 3D platformer make jumping, like, so simple? And it's like, because it's funner this way. I don't know how
yeah.
else
I
to
mean,
say it.
to go back to the Crash thing, right? That's sort of
Mm-hmm.
where I was getting at. Is I think this game tries to compensate for the difficulty and precision for 3D jumping.
Yeah.
And I personally don't love the hover thing. Like I think it doesn't I think it's okay. I think it's fun for this game. I would not want every Mario game to have a FLUDD. Let's just say that.
No, no, definitely not. Like if Nintendo was ever like, we're FLUDD's coming back, but it's not a Mario Sunshine sequel, I would tilt my head a little, you know. I would be like,
Yeah.
what's the idea here? And they'd probably do it like in a very similar way to like how Galaxy had its power-ups, where like the level would be purely built around the FLUDD.
Yeah, I could see like Mario Odyssey having a FLUDD level in New Donk City where there's graffiti everywhere. Right?
Yeah.
That would make sense. And I think that would
Mhm.
be completely organic and that would be smart. But like and that goes into things beyond the hover nozzle, right? The hover nozzle is just one aspect of it. There's also the aiming that utilizes 3D space to sort of, shoot where you want to shoot.
Yeah, and
It's
the
Mario
analog
shooting without a
triggers.
gun. Exactly. And yes, it actually utilizes the GameCube's trigger system where you can lightly press the trigger or you can click in the trigger, and when you click in the trigger there's a different mode of fire.
And you
And
could just
that really
tell,
works.
like, have you played this on the Switch, the 3D All Stars version?
I have not.
It's just not the same, like, in any way. Like, this game is so made for the GameCube controller that, like, playing it on the Switch, it just feels gross in kind of the same way that playing like Mario Galaxy on the Switch feels weird. Like, it
Yeah.
just doesn't line up. This isn't how I play this game. And I
No,
think
that
just
makes
like
sense. That's
and I
that speaks a lot to go ahead.
I like cleaning up paint. I like shooting water and cleaning up paint. Like this and Luigi's Mansion, it was very clear Nintendo wanted to show off like the technical power of the GameCube. Because
Yeah.
you're messing in Luigi's Mansion, you're messing with like a lot of dust particle physics and such, and lighting.
Yep.
In this, it's like water physics, and then you on that
And
one
like a little
beach
bit of
level.
the cell shading with the graffiti. Like
Uh-huh.
I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but it's got like that thing to it. Yeah.
Yeah, how like the water cleans, how you can like spray like individual spots of the
Yep.
graffiti or the slime that's everywhere on Gelato Beach. It has those big ass mirrors that reflect everything.
Oof. Yeah, that's
Like
crazy.
I don't know, something about games that are very clearly like tech demos. I don't know, I enjoy them because they're always so much more visually interesting.
That's fair. That's fair. I think in the context of I like to visit this game as a tech demo, as an experience, and not as a guided mission setup, I
Mhm.
could see it being a favorite. Um,
Yeah.
I,
And
to criticize the game more, I think a lot of the missions are like kind of fundamentally suck. Depending on the mission,
mhm.
because there's a lot of them that try to avoid the FLUDD. Number one, I guess the other thing I want to say about the FLUDD that I love before we get off the topic is I like being able to run, lightly shoot the FLUDD, and then dive. And then you're like belly
Yeah.
sliding, and you're like, ooh, and then you like flip. That's so fun. That's so
Mhm.
cute.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, a lot of the missions. So, for instance, to beat the game, you have to beat the Shadow Mario stage in every level or in every area. That does not mean get X amount of shines. I think you have to get X amount of shines to unlock the areas within, but that's not hard to
Yeah.
do.
And then you
Um,
have to beat the Shadow Mario, and then that will
yes,
progress the story.
So in this sense, there's a lot of useless shines. Like the shines we were just talking about where you have to get on Yoshi for Delphino Plaza. You don't need to get that shine at all. There that if you get that shine, it's a waste of time unless you get 100%.
Yeah, well,
And
if
I
you get
think that
100%, you get cool shades that make the screen darker.
look, you're telling me, man. I love the shades and I love the shirt. And I like blue coins. I think blue coins are really, really cool. Um, though that sort of currency is way better than the 100 coins and red coins of Mario 64. But
Mm-hmm.
they don't
I'll agree with
matter
that. Well,
unless you know, unless you're going for 100%.
yeah, I always did kind of like collecting 100 coins in 64, but I do like discovering the blue coins here because kind of like breaking from what Mario 64 did, where you can tackle like any star in any order you want, and there are only a few that like really set up a specific like scenario within the level. In this one, it's
Yeah,
always a different scenario, but like finding the blue coins is always like a side challenge within that.
yeah. And I guess what I was gonna say earlier was a lot of the missions don't necessarily feel like flood. I think there's a lot of times where they do, and when they do, it feels awesome. Like for instance, I think a good example is the hotel area. The hotel area I love in terms of the setting. It's a spooky ghost haunted hotel, but because it's tropical, it's a hotel, and it feels like a very like you know, Hotel California vibe. It's
Uh huh.
sunset, and I love that level where you're spraying the manta, and then the manta
Yeah,
splits.
that's one of my
That's
favorites. The ghost
that is
manta.
a fantastic use of the hover nozzle,
Yeah.
and it feels great.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I think Sirena Beach is like my favorite level because there's so much variety between its missions that, yeah, you don't really see in the other ones. Like there's the manta, and then there's the part where you go in the hotel, and it's sort of like an adventure game scenario where you're trying to find
Yes,
like
and
the
I
right
dislike
way.
that for the most part. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not crazy about it
and you go up through that
because
guy's
because
toilet.
yeah, because platforming in the hotel is not good because it's cramped. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
cramped hotel. So you're basically having to like jump in between things, and then at best, like yeah, like you're going through rooms and going through walls or vents like Die Hard to fucking have fun there. I like King Boo there in the casino, but like, you know, the thing I don't like about Sirena Beach is the fucking watermelon level. I hate the watermelon level more than I hate the sand bird.
The Watermelon's Gelato Beach.
Oh my dude, Serena Beach is the hotel. Gelato Beach sucks. My bad. I maintain that though. I like Pantissimo, the runner that you have to beat in this game.
Yeah,
He's super fun.
he calls you a pokey little flab biscuit if you lose to him.
He's great.
I
Thumbs up. Love him.
I
But
love how
yeah,
everyone's just kind of an asshole to Mario. All the natives just hate his guts. I mean, with like justifiable reason, but even after it's proven that you're not the one doing it, everyone's still kind of an asshole.
yeah. No,
Do
it's
you
wild.
do you want to talk about the story? Because I think this is something that's like unique to the GameCube Mario 2, where it's like suddenly there's voice acting for everything except for Mario
Yeah,
himself.
you can see that difference in like Odyssey. Odyssey, I believe, like completely drops the voice. I don't remember it. It's been years, but
Galaxy doesn't
um,
have voice acting.
Galaxy for sure doesn't have voice acting. They just mutter. They go row 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 row.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it here. I think here is a very Saturday morning cartoon vibe.
Hmm.
So it's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you want to talk about Bowser Jr.? Is that what you're talking about?
No, no, it's just like it's like weird that everyone harp like when the new Pokemon was revealed, and everyone was like, why are we still doing text boxes, for Pokemon? Like why is Nintendo so apprehensive towards voice acting in their games? And I think that like I don't know, I feel like they've learned some sort of wrong lesson with Sunshine, cuz Sunshine's story I don't think was like well received. Everyone found it a little strange to have like the toads talking and Peach like sort of just I don't the Princess Peach voice actress, no offense to her, she just makes Peach sound a little brain dead, you know?
Mario,
Yeah.
you're Bowser's son?
I'm
Like,
your
yeah, it's
mama. Like,
I'm your mama.
yeah.
Okay.
I
Two things I'll say here. I want to cite that I think it's a difference between IPs. So, for instance, Breath of the Wild is a complete counterexample where
mhm.
it was all text boxes until they decided to up the production value because there's not a lot of story in Breath of the Wild compared to the other games, less cutscenes in general, less dialogue. Period. So it's like let's go for the gold and add voice acting. They just
Mhm.
didn't make Link talk. Everyone else talks.
Yeah.
Here, I think Mario would benefit from voice acting, and Charles Martinet does a good job. Mario doesn't talk a lot, and it's goofy enough to work. And there's not a lot of cutscenes, but they work. I like it when at the very end of the game, when Bowser's like, "Son, I gotta tell you the truth," and he's
Uh
like, "I know Peach isn't my mama," and he's like, "What? Well, let's get Mario some other time." It just feels good.
it is a little weird to hear Bowser talk in this game. I will say that. Cuz I don't know, it's not quite Jack Black quality yet. I
Yeah, we gotta wait for the Jack Black. That's
I
exactly what the
do like
problem
Bowser
was.
Jr.'s like odd like New England accent.
Yeah, he's weird.
Um
I like Bowser Jr. I don't think he's a problem. I think the only issue with Bowser Jr. was he took a lot of the Koopaling limelight for his initial duration, but now they've sort of settled into like the Koopalings exist, but Bowser Jr.'s like the head. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Bowser Jr.'s the only one that's actually Bowser's son, is how they
Yes.
said it. Um, and Brogan, don't you think it's weird that when Bowser Jr. says Peach is his mama, she doesn't outright deny it?
I don't know what to tell you, Murph. All I got is my sunglasses and my margarita on the beach. That's how I operate in this game. Let me ask you. Let me ask you another one. I don't know if we're winding down yet, but what do you think of the secret stages without FLUDD? Because
The
this
the
is
the doo
like
wopping skit scatting. Uh,
yes, because it's notable that for a lot of people, this is like heavy discourse regarding FLUDD because without FLUDD, you can dissect it, and they're much more bite-sized obstacle courses like traditional Mario. So a lot of people say that this is like a predecessor to Galaxy, and they're
yeah,
quote unquote the good stages. I actually disagree with that, but what's
I
your feelings
think
on it?
I think the platforming, like floodless platforming, only stands out because it's that bite-sized experience. I think if the full game was built around that, I think some flaws would start to be apparent. Like there's a fan mod called Mario Eclipse,
I
and
played that.
oh, you have, okay, and in that, don't they make FLUDD like a power up?
I think so. Well, I take it back because there's multiple Mario ones, and I don't think Eclipse is like fully out yet. I played a demo of it, and they have like alternative power ups and alternative levels. That's what
Yeah.
I played.
I was just
So
looking
I
at
don't necessarily
I
know
was just
stuff like
looking at
yeah.
the trailer earlier today, and it was a lot of Mario without the FLUDD, and then like some bonus characters who also don't have the FLUDD. Like they were making
Yeah,
the game purely around the platforming, which to me is
I
just
think
like,
that's a problem. Yeah.
yeah, to me that's just
Mar-
not what Mario Sunshine is about. Like you've removed a core part of its identity. You know, it's like the the defining feature to me is that it is so different from the other Marios. You
yeah,
know?
and Mario's move set in this game isn't meant for an entire game of what those secret levels are. The secret levels have good, cute gimmicks to them, and they're especially nice in terms of like 3D Mario at the time. But now we have that. We have obstacle course 3D Mario games. That's no longer special. So I think in the context of the game, I think FLUDD, it just stands out and tells you how important FLUDD is to the experience.
Yeah, yeah, and like, you know, the game ends when FLUDD sacrifices themselves to destroy Bowser's hot tub.
That's a great boss fight. That is a fantastic boss
You
fight.
actually like that one.
I do. I'm
I've
okay. We have
I've
never
never
talked
actually
about. Go ahead.
Mount Corona, I don't mind. I'm one of the few people that don't hate the Mount Corona level. The actual boss fight with Bowser, I think, is something of a clusterfuck.
Clusterfuck. I agree. Here's my thing, and I am now bearing it all for for episode 1 of this new season. My take on bosses is I need the bosses to number one have a personality and identity, and number two have a way to engage with them. I think, for instance, Mario 64's Bowser bosses suck. It's good once to throw the tail. And it's nice that you can throw the tail and the area changes in the last boss battle of that game, but
Yeah.
it's not like super engaging. Whereas in this game, I like the blooper. I like PD Piranha. I like Bowser, and I like doing the gimmick. The gimmick is fun,
Yeah.
and it's one of the few times you get that rocket launch nozzle, and it's fun. It's good. Thumbs up.
Yeah. No, I I won't disagree that this game does have like it's like gimmicks on gimmicks for a lot of different stages. And I think that's just so important to its flavor. Like again, this isn't I don't think this is the best 3D Mario. I would probably like concede that it's like Odyssey, or I'll concede that it's like 64, whatever. But this is the one that always just like, if you want to plunk me down and like say play a Mario that will make you happy, I'll play this.
Well, I guess that goes into because we talked about it before in our private chats together. What you want in a Mario game. So when you say those
Yeah.
like 64 or Odyssey, I don't agree. I like for me the Galaxies were the best. I liked Mario 3D World now more in memory, especially like Bowser's
Mhm.
Fury. But like that being said, the Galaxies were my dream, and they are fundamentally different games than what you cited. So what do you want in a Mario 3D game?
I think I just want that playground feel. Like I think Bob-omb Battlefield is like one of the best opening levels in any video game. Um and then like once Mario 64 becomes like you get to the later half and you're on like Rainbow Ride, and it becomes so much more focused on like rather than these big open levels you can run around and explore, it's just like about obstacle courses.
Yeah.
That's where it like starts to lose me. And I think like the back half of any 3D Mario, I think, is where any of them start to lose me. Like it's super fun right at the start because it front loads you with a lot of like energetic levels and very visually like memorable areas. And then like the back half, it feels like they kind of start running out of steam.
I will say in positive to both Galaxies and Mario Sunshine is that's where I think gimmicks have their strength. I think the issue with gimmicks is the uncalculated difficulty spikes. But that being
Yeah.
said, the game stays fresh. So like for me, I 100%ed the galaxies because even by the end game, I was experiencing new things every time. And that
Yeah.
was where it felt rewarding. And you get that in Sunshine. The issue is it's much more up and down in terms of what you're in for.
Yeah. I think okay, here I found the perfect analogy. When I
Okay.
play a Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I am not like chasing scores. I'm not trying to figure out how to pull off the tricks. I just like riding around in these levels, like grinding on things, finding the collectibles. That's where my enjoyment for those games like begins and ends. If you tell me like pull off like this combo string, I'm not going to know what to do. I play Tony Hawk Pro Skater with my thumb on the analog stick, not the D-pad.
Gotcha.
and
All right.
that's
No,
and
that's
that's
fair.
how Mario 3D Mario feels to me. Like I will never contest that the Galaxy games are not like some of the best like put together platforming games. But that's just not what I come to a 3D Mario for.
Fair enough. Are there like what else? Do you want to wind down, or is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just looking at my notes here. It's just some like little one-off goofs. I have always felt the Rico Harbor theme is about to go into like this land is your land.
That's fair. I could see that.
Have you ever heard that? It's like so close. It gets so close to like a sound alike. Um, I've always liked the eel boss with the dirty mouth and his four eyes.
I don't like it. That's one of those. I don't like Noki Noki Bay.
I
It's
do
funny
think
that I
Noki
keep saying
Noki
I
Bay.
don't like areas.
I think
I
Noki
like I
Noki
like
Bay is
Rico
like the
Harbor,
worst area.
Bianco Hill. What?
I do
Sorry.
think Noki Noki Bay is like the worst area.
Oh man, I think Pianta Village is pretty bad. The issue with Pianta Village is it's like the whole area is a difficulty spike. It is the area
Yeah,
where you are meant to die a lot.
but you got the chain
And
chomps, and they're like
that's
little dogs. They're like little like force
Murph.
bred chain chomps.
I don't think that's good enough, man. Anyways, I like Pinna Park, maybe not even for the missions. Maybe I just like Pinna Park as a location. I like
Yeah,
Riku Harbor for missions and location, which is why I love it. Um, the hotel is okay depending on the thing. I think the hotel itself is too claustrophobic for maneuverability. And
hmm
then like Bianco Hills is fun. The first level of the game, like those first levels with the windmills, those are all fun. PD Piranha is an excellent first boss.
yeah.
Like that stuff's just great. It's just good.
hmm No, I
You can
think
play
it's
around
just
with wires, and you can like swing on the wires, and you can
yeah.
like
That
do
first
the twirl.
like it's so telling that like how this game is built around fun that like Bianco Hills, your first level, introduces you with this big slope you can just immediately slide down into. And then you've got
Yep.
wires you're hopping around on. It's like just again, it's that playground feel to me. That's just yeah, I said at the top, I find the game fun and that's enough for me.
I mean that's good enough, dog. We
You know
do
what's also fun?
what
Plugging your friends.
is it? Anything like alien probes, or is this a different type of thing?
We're not probing, we're plugging.
Okay, all
So,
right. Go ahead and plug away.
a probe you take out, a plug stays there. Um Probes are liminal. Okay. So we've got some other shows on the Twin Geeks network. And so we've got Critical Consideration, where our friends Vaughn and Calvin, they're members of the Seattle Critics Society. Their Seattle Critics Society is gearing up for their like equivalent to like the Oscars, Golden Globes, what have you. So he and Vaughn and Calvin are going over the list of nominees and talking about like what their thoughts on what they're voting for, etc., etc. Calvin and Steven just had like for the first time in a long time ranking the monsters back with like Godzilla versus Hedorah, which is like one of the best weird Godzilla movies from the 70s. There's a strange fish dance. It's great. Still
What
there?
about your podcast, Murph? I'm still here. What about your podcast, Murph?
Oh, okay. Everything just froze up on me. Don't leave that in. On my podcast, this podcast is a bad idea. By the time this goes up, our January episode will be up. It is a slightly requested episode. It is me explaining the plot of Kingdom Hearts.
Oh my god, you're shitting me.
That's what it is. The fans demanded it. Mostly my co-host.
Who demanded this?
Mostly my co-host Fru, because she sent me like some Kingdom Hearts TikTok and was like, explain this to me. And I'm like, we're gonna need to set aside like 90 minutes tops.
That's terrible. Terrible stuff. Kingdom Hearts 2 is the best one. Anyways, continue plugging.
I don't disagree with that. Like, I don't know why you said that like that was a hot take. Let's see. You and I and Calvin are working on a new project. Do we want to tease and plug that here?
It's video game adjacent. I don't like movies, but I like video games. So we met in the middle.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a series of double features on video game movies, with the first episode being the original 1995 Mortal Kombat and the 2003 adaptation of Silent Hill.
I like how you said 2003 there, but yes.
Is it 2003? That's why I said it like that. Is it?
I have no idea. I don't remember.
Absolutely no way of knowing in this modern age. And then, also...
I know it. You want to know something weird? I know it came out April 21st. I don't know what year. I know it came out April 21st.
Whoa. Okay. You've got that tattooed on your arm. Silent Hill came out April 21st, but the rest is smudged.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like there was like somebody's birthday, and it was like we watched Silent Hill.
You went to see Silent Hill? Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're also going to have a bonus episode of the Daydreamcast, because you and I played one of them big games from the last year, and we have many thoughts, and we're going to set aside some time just to do a little bonus episode on it, and that game is God of War Ragnarok.
God damn. I'm ready. Let's do it.
You're ready, boy?
Let's sail away to the high seas. What's the actual next game of the week?
The actual next game... Well, you know what? It's funny you mentioned sailing away. Come sail away with me to the land of the Emerald Isles, where we will be playing King's Quest VI, Air Today, Gone Tomorrow. Which is also a vacation game, now that I think about it.
I think there's some running themes in this season. But see you all later, man. And we're playing out.
Yeah. I do. I mean, do you want to have like dialogue over the music playing out like every time, or?
It's over now.
It's over. Okay, it's already ended.
Literally, I try to like time it to where you say something where it's like clearly like, like I should cut it 2 seconds before you say it.